There's a national push to end chronic disease, starting with removing harmful chemicals and artificial dyes out of your food. Today, we're helping you take your health to the next level with holistic health coach Sonia McGruder.
From the Stream Center, welcome to Bloom Health Club, sponsored by Monticello Family and Sedation Dentistry.
Hello, everyone. I'm Gail Guardo, your host of Bloom Health Club. And joining us today is integrative nutrition health coach, business coach, and entrepreneur in the health and wellness space, Sonia McGruder. It is so great to see you, my friend. Welcome to the Bloom Health Club.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
Happy to have you because you are a woman who knows a lot about the movement that we're trying to take this country in, and that's to end chronic disease. And a lot of chronic diseases are being linked to what is in our foods.
Yeah, for sure. Ultra processed foods are linked to so many chronic diseases. They have the dyes that we're hearing a lot about lately, the artificial dyes that can be carcinogenic that are also linked to ADHD, hyperactivity in children. They've got lots of other things, ingredients like glyphosate that is in there because it's sprayed on the crops that become the ingredients.
Yeah, and you were one of the very first people that I met that actually came on our syndicated health and wellness show, Bloom, and now here in the Bloom Health Club, which is streaming, to talk about glyphosate. That's basically the same ingredient used in Roundup. Am I right?
Yes.
A weed killer.
Yes. It's probably been the most popular weed killer ever because it works. It kills the weeds and it doesn't kill what you don't want it to kill. And there's different iterations of it now. So there's one that's used in Europe. There's another version of it here called, I think it's called Ranger Pro, and with other things added to it that makes it even worse. But yeah, it's sprayed on crops, and it's sprayed to not only kill the weeds on crops that have seeds that are called Roundup ready, genetically modified, so they can withstand the Roundup. They'll continue to grow. But it's also used as a desiccant, as a drying agent, so that these certain crops can dry before they harvest them. It just makes production quicker and makes it more profitable, but at what cost? Because it's affecting our health.
And when you're talking about treating the seed, it really doesn't matter how much you're washing your fruits and vegetables in the sink. It's growing within your food. That's where you're going to find with every bite, you're getting a bite of the pesticide. Is that correct?
Yes, exactly. It goes into every cell of the plant, and you cannot wash it out. You can't rinse it out. You can't cook it out. So the crops that are the ones that are the most highly sprayed with glyphosate are the most common ingredients in ultra processed foods. Corn, soy, canola, all of those, you'll see those in so many boxes of processed foods. Sugar beets, that's another one. And then the ones where it's used as a desiccant is wheat, barley, oats, chickpeas. Even it's been found, I think you mentioned the pasta.
Yeah, there was a pasta. I was so excited. I'm like, oh, I won't be eating wheat. I'll eat this chickpea pasta, and it's super popular. You can find it on all the grocery store shelves. Come to find out, it too has been used with, the product has been sprayed with glyphosate. So a lot of, even my own doctor, when I was dealing with my thyroid, hypothyroidism, health issues, said, hey, listen, Gail, when you go to Europe, you can go ahead and eat the bread, enjoy the pasta, but we can't do that in our own country.
Yeah, it's pretty sad. And that's why so many people have gut issues. They've got bloating, they've got leaky gut. And it's true. Then they go to Europe and they're like, I ate all the bread and all the pasta. I was fine. I didn't have any issues. But yeah, because it disrupts the gut microbiome. And it was patented years ago as an antibiotic. So think about that, what that does to your gut microbiome. It's killing everything in there, including your good gut bacteria that is your immune system.
But now there's some accountability happening where these food companies, and what's really interesting about this is that it's moms and, women and all different kinds of people that are voicing their concerns about this. And they don't need to get in front of a news camera anymore. They're just going on their social media platforms and talking about what's being done to our foods. And that has caused a lot of major companies to pivot. But up until now, they've really been getting away with whatever they want to get away with because no one's been policing this.
Yeah, they have. And, they're allowed to do it. It's considered legal limits, all those things. Even in this study, the recent study that just came out about glyphosate, they used the amount that's considered safe, that's deemed safe by regulatory agencies on the rats in the study. And there's a whole host of cancers and all kinds of things that came out of this, really, really serious. And these are rats that typically do not get cancer. They don't, on their own, the control group had none. And leukemia was a high one. That was the highest one, but it was also breast, ovarian, uterine cancer, kidney cancer, pancreatic cancer that developed just by putting it in their water and drinking the amount that is called safe.
That's unbelievable. It's interesting, and I've shared this story with you on a personal level before, but 7-8 years ago, I lost both of my parents. And while I've taken so many medical DNA kits, cancer is not prevalent in our DNA, yet both my parents died from cancer. And when they died exactly a year to the date of each other. And I would go into different cancer centers and I would see row after row after row of people hooked up to IVs, ports. And I thought to myself back then, something is going gravely wrong in our healthcare system right now, because we didn't see all of this before. But you know what? We didn't have all of these products in the marketplace and all this accessibility. And they're trying to turn foods different colors to make it look more appealing to people and to grab them in with marketing schemes. But at the end of the day, it's making us really sick.
It really is. And these ultra processed foods, they're actually excuse me, they're made in labs to be addictive. They're actually made to hit certain brain receptors to be addictive. That is their business model. That's their repeat business, which is really sad. So one of the things you mentioned that about being in the hospital, and this just made me think of this. A friend of mine, her mom had had a heart attack. She was in the hospital. My friend she was there with her mom as her advocate, met with the dietitian who rolled up a cart. The dietitian was extremely overweight, obese, like in an unhealthy way. And the cart was full of these ultra processed foods in the hospital, recommended by the dietitian. And it was just, as long as there's not sodium, as long as the sodium is low.
It's unbelievable to me. Well, fortunately, the tides are turning. I mean, they cannot turn fast enough. But in the meantime, I know you coach a lot of people on wellness. What recommendations do you give? Because it's a very confusing landscape out there. You and I have talked about greenwashing labels. And, it can say it's healthy on the label, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's true.
Yeah. Look out for things that have, have the word healthy, mother, nature, even separate, even the word mothers, brown packaging, green packaging, anything like that. Simple, the word simple, turn it over and read the actual ingredient label. That's where you're going to see what's really in there. But the marketing can be so sneaky because it makes it look, it might even say valley, something valley, picture of trees and mountains. And I used to fall for that.
Me too.
I used to buy those frozen dinners that had healthy in the name because, it says healthy because I didn't know. I didn't know what I didn't know back then.
But if we're shopping in the inner aisles and we're seeing lots of different ingredients that we cannot pronounce, that's a pretty good indicator that you should put that product back on the shelf.
Yeah, we always hear shop the perimeter because that's where the whole foods, like the food itself should be the ingredient. The apple the ingredient is the apple. So the produce is always on the perimeter of the grocery store, and the boxed foods and the ultra processed, frozen processed foods, they're all in the middle. And it's interesting what you said before about made to be appealing to us, because we're obviously made to be drawn to colors. Like we're made that way because we were made to eat fruits and vegetables because they have vitamins and minerals in them and they're good for us. So for us to want to eat them, we had to be made to be attracted to all those colors. And that's what these food companies do. They mimic what's in nature. It's just so many subtle nuances of what they do. Like when you think of Skittles,
yes,
and it says taste the rainbow,
right?
All these different colors, bright colors. But obviously you want to get those from real food.
Without a doubt. And I kind of want to circle back to what you were saying earlier about genetically modified foods or Roundup ready seeds that where the chemicals are grown in. Should we keep our eye on the dirty dozen when it comes to our fruits and vegetables and buy organic when we can? I mean, I know that doesn't make it so affordable for folks, but if you're going to eat an apple or you're going to have grapes, it's probably best to choose organic. If it has a thick skin, like an avocado, you probably don't need it, or a banana, but you should try to choose organic as best you can.
Yeah, that's a great reference, the Clean 15 Dirty Dozen, because those are the ones that are on the Dirty Dozen. Very highly sprayed with pesticides and herbicides. Apples, strawberries, grapes, cherries, those are some of the ones on that list. And then the other ones, like you said, with the thicker skin, even Brussels sprouts, I think broccoli, they're on the Clean 15 because for whatever reason, they don't need to spray them very much. But yeah, so if you're trying to save money and you're on a budget, you could use that as a guide. But the ones in the Dirty Dozen, definitely try to get organic or from a farmer's market where you know how they grow it.
Yeah, exactly. We push that a lot. Buy local as much as you can, guys, because the other thing that's important to remember is if they're shipping fruits and vegetables across the country, it's being tampered with just so it can make the trip. So the more you can buy local, know your source, support your local farmers. I mean, now's the time to do that.
Absolutely. That is the best thing you could do. And it's not going to be that expensive. It's because when you think about a local farmer and they're at a farmer's market, they don't have all that overhead and all those in between middlemen and all those things of what you get at the grocery store.
All right, let's switch gears a little bit and talk about vitamins and nutraceuticals, because I've been reading a lot of articles as of late that what you think you're getting is not exactly what you're getting, and you might be doing your body more harm than good. So how can the consumer be aware in that realm?
You want to make sure that you can get the COA, which is Certificate of Analysis, third-party testing. So there's typically in-house testing, but you want to make sure there's third-party testing, a neutral party. And common tests would be for mold, yeast, pathogens, heavy metals, glyphosate, pesticides, herbicides, all of those things. You want to make sure it's tested for.
Now, there are some companies that even go above and beyond, and when individual ingredients come in to make the vitamin, they're testing those to make sure they are what they're said to be.
Yeah, super important. I'm so glad you brought that up. Identity testing of ingredients is so important because, first of all, you want to get what you're paying your hard-earned money for. You want to make sure that's what you're getting. And more important, what if someone's allergic to something and it's not what's on the label, it's some other ingredient that they don't know what it is? You may remember a few years ago, GNC and Walmart, there was all over the news that the supplements they had, some of the supplements on their shelves, what was in the bottle, nowhere near resembled what was on the label.
And what's also important, people hear the word allergic, you might think, oh, I'm going to start breaking out into hives or my throat's going to start closing up. But some people have what are called sensitivities. So it might not present in a way that looks like an everyday allergic reaction, but something's off in your body and your body's just not able to process it correctly. And that's what becomes a problem when you're working with ingredients. Now, do a lot of companies actually go through the trouble of third-party testing and the identity testing?
Yeah, I think there are companies who do. I know the company where I get mainly my supplements from, which are whole food supplements, I know the owners personally. I have walked through the manufacturing facility. I've seen the products made. I've had all their processes explained to me. I've even seen the identity testing machine. So it helps if you can't always know the owners, but
right.
You want to know who's behind it.
Okay, what company is this?
It's Purium.
Okay, and so isn't it true that they realized that they were getting, was it wheat from a certain farmer, and they realized it wasn't up to their standard, and then they switched gears a bit? I mean, like they're even, some companies are getting right down to the science of knowing who their provider is and cross-checking to make sure that these ingredients are treated the way they say it is out in the fields.
Yeah, I actually met one of their farmers that they get their wheatgrass from. He's I think 77 years old, really cool guy. He's an organic farmer, Bob Quinn. And he is one of the suppliers. They've had a decades-long relationship with him. And the farms that they get the ingredients from use regenerative farming practices, which is a whole other topic.
So talk to me about that. I mean, the regenerative farming practices, I mean, that is definitely something you should be looking for.
Yeah. There was a movie that came out maybe a year or two ago, a documentary called Common Ground. If you ever get the chance to watch it, it's amazing. And it talks about agriculture, conventional agriculture, tilling over and over, tilling the soil versus regenerative, where the crops are rotated and they have microbes in the soils and worms and all those things.
The things that should be in our soil, because a lot of soil that our fruits or vegetables are grown in, it's basically like dead soil. It doesn't have the nutrients that we need. And without those nutrients, they're not being actually infused into whatever it is that you're eating. So for example, a tomato today doesn't even have close to the nutrients that a tomato from 30 years ago might have, because of the tilling that Sonia McGruder is talking about and the way our soils are being treated. Well, I want to bring in our producer, Nacha Castillo, who is switching the show today. And Nacha, this is something that we talk a lot about in our globally syndicated health and wellness show, and we're starting to see more of a movement in this area.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's a really interesting topic, because I recently, for example, got diagnosed with celiac disease, and that's something that's not in my family. Now I find myself trying to read the labels and try to find different things that could be greenwashing or things that don't specify that it has different ingredients. So it's definitely a challenge for everybody.
And you're seeing more of these autoimmune conditions like celiac disease or like my hypothyroidism, things that don't typically run in our families, but they're cropping up, yes, because of the foods that we eat and also the products that we're putting on our skin that have petroleum-based ingredients. And I mean, it's like, it's gotten to the point that I'm like, is this okay to eat? Is this okay to wash my body with? I mean, you really have to be your own consumer advocate.
Yeah, you do. And we have to just try to do our best. So with you, Nacha, I know you have to avoid gluten because of celiac. And you want to make sure, if you're looking at something that says gluten-free, that the rest of the ingredients are clean too.
Yes, and that's what I found, that in the past year or so, that a lot of things might say gluten-free, and then you see kind of like at the bottom it says may contain gluten or may contain anything else. And then you're just like fishing for the correct ingredients.
Gluten-free is not necessarily 100% gluten-free. There's a threshold. I think it's 20 parts per billion, 20 or 40 parts per billion. As long as it's below that, then they can call it gluten-free. So there's even that. So much to navigate.
So much to navigate. Well, we have started something new on the Bloom Health Club. It's called Get Real, and it's where we put out, the topic that we're going to be talking about, and then we ask, what are the viewer questions? What do you guys want to know about? Now, I know that we've already covered this a little bit, but Jenny asked, what is glyphosate and what foods might be exposed to it? So if you don't mind,
Great question. So glyphosate is a very popular herbicide. And since the patent ran out, it's not just in Roundup. If you look at any herbicide, weed killer, on the shelf at home improvement stores, it's going to contain glyphosate. So it's an herbicide. It's very interesting because there's been people, the manufacturer, saying it's safe, it can't get into the cells of the human body. But what it does get into is called the shikimate pathway, which is what we have in our gut microbiome. That's how it gets into the plant. That's how it gets into us. And remember, our gut is where 70% of our immune system is.
And that's how you actually got into the business that you're in today, is trying to correct your own gut microbiome.
Yeah, I had terrible digestive issues. I use a product every single day that is proven to pull glyphosate out of the body because it's insidious. Even if we eat 100% organic, we're still exposed in the air and the water. They've even said it's in the rain, because the runoff evaporates and then it comes down. It's just so prevalent. So I use something that I know is binding and pulling it out.
Okay, let's go to the next question, which comes from Paul And this kind of goes back to our discussion on nutraceuticals, supplements, vitamins. Are all vitamins safe?
No, not necessarily. You got to know what's in them. You have to know. We talked about the identity testing. There's also vitamins where your body's not even going to really benefit or absorb it.
So you have just really expensive urine?
Yes, exactly.
I've fallen into that trap.
Same. Synthetic isolates, even ascorbic acid is not the true nutrient vitamin C. You want to have vitamins coming from whole food sources, and there are whole food supplements. Even the vitamin C I use does not have ascorbic acid. It's got amla, acerola, citrus bioflavonoids. These are all food sources. So when it's a whole food source, it's got all the cofactors. It's got the enzymes, the minerals, the fiber. So the body actually recognizes and assimilates it.
All right, that's very interesting. And I think a lot of people do not realize this. And every shelf is just lined with vitamins. So you want to know what you're choosing and make sure it's right for your body. Let's go to Louisa. She wants to know, what do you think are the most overlooked root causes of chronic disease today?
There's a few. One is what we put in our bodies that we talked about, the ultra-processed foods, especially lifestyle diseases like type 2 diabetes, completely avoidable and reversible by lifestyle. And that's why they're called lifestyle diseases. Stress, not managing stress correctly, because stress can be a killer. I mean, it can cause our gene expression to change. So, there's a saying, genetics loads the gun, lifestyle pulls the trigger, and it's really true. So stress, movement, getting movement somehow every day. We talked before about the people in the blue zones.
Yes, the blue zones.
Look at what they're doing.
Yeah. And community. We talk a lot about community and being with friends and just being lifted. All of this matters. I mean, yes, we are centered around health and wellness, but under the wellness part of our umbrella is about, who you're hanging out with. What's your spirituality look like? What kind of thoughts are going through your mind every day? And that's all really important when it comes to holistic health.
Having an attitude of gratitude, positivity,
yes,
rather than dwelling on the negative or what you don't have. Having that attitude of gratitude, journaling every morning, the few things you're grateful for can really shift how you feel, your nervous system.
Yeah, it does. And I know that you actually coach a lot of people in the business world. Is that right? And in this particular space?
Yes, I do. And I love that because the people that I find are attracted to me that have come into my space here are people who love helping people. They're passionate about health and wellness. They maybe don't know where to start, but they love helping other people.
Well, listen, I also, that lends me to a big thank you to our title sponsor, Monticello Family and Sedation Dentistry, for believing in our show and helping us get the message out. That certainly means a lot to us. And Sonia, how do we find you on social media?
Yeah, so Instagram, it's Sonia, Sonia _Magruder. And then Facebook is just Sonia McGruder.
Okay. Well, listen, we want to thank all of our Bloom viewers and Bloom Health Club viewers for watching us today. And don't forget, you can stream Bloom Health Club anytime by installing the WFLA app on your smart TV. You can find us on Apple TV, Fire TV, Roku, Samsung TV, WFLA.com, and YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. We will see you next time.